State of Affairs is pleased to welcome the former Attorney General of the great state of New Jersey, Peter Harvey, who is an independent monitor appointed by the Department of Justice for the Newark Police Division.
Correct.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Long time.
It has been. We look younger. How is that?
Well, you look younger.
Let's leave that alone.
It's the mileage.
A lot of work.
Yeah, very much so.
Like it. Hey, listen, Peter, let's get to serious business.
Sure.
The independent monitor appointed by the United States. Okay.
U.S. District Court. Essentially what you have is the Department of Justice investigates patterns and practices of what they view to be unconstitutional behavior. They do it with police departments. They come in and say, look, we're going to litigate unless you agree to these reforms.
Right.
Most cities say, okay, we'll agree to these reforms. They go, okay, let's embody that in a settlement agreement called a consent decree.
Right.
So you've got the Department of Justice on one side, the city, and the police department on the other. The two work out a consent decree. They file it in federal court. Now, DOJ says, we don't trust you to tell us that you're in compliance. City says, well, wait a minute, I don't trust you to verify my compliance. Well, let's pick a third party.
And you're the independent?
I'm the independent.
So what's so interesting is, by the way, for those who have never seen it, go on our website. Jackie put up steveautobato.org. That is our website. Go check out a series that we did with our great partner here at NJTV, Michael Hill, who was the co-anchor with me. It's called Building Trust Between Police and the Minority Community. The head of the Newark Police Department, Anthony Ambrose, was with us on that. He talked about you, talked about the relationship. What do you say to those who say, what did Newark do to deserve having the federal government come in? There were some problems.
Well, I would refer people to go watch an NPR, a PBS series called Policing the Police, which focuses on the Newark PD. Essentially, Newark Police had an internal affairs problem. They wouldn't thoroughly investigate complaints made by citizens against police officers.
Blacks and excuse me interrupting, Peter, were blacks and Latinos being disproportionately stopped?
No, it's not so much a motor vehicle problem as you had on the turnpike. No.
What was it?
It was a street problem. Stop, detention, arrest. That's number one. Number two, you had an internal affairs problems. Namely, people, the department was not investigating thoroughly complaints made by citizens. Number three, you had a property theft issue here. So if you got stopped, you gave over your property, you got released, you didn't get back all the property that you gave over. Thirdly, you had an evidence problem. So you have a property and evidence room here that needs to be rebuilt. It's antiquated, it's old, it's going to cost about $8 million, and it needs to be rebuilt. And you had bias-free policing issues. So you had police bias in the patrols, and you had a lack of community engagement and use of force.
Rank and file police officers in Newark resisting?
No, not at all, no.
Why not?
Well, I think many rank and file do their homework. They also see other cities under a consent decree. They also know you can't outlast the Department of Justice. Example, City of Oakland. Police department resisted a consent decree. They have been under a consent decree for 27 years. The federal Oakland, the federal judge there at one point put in a receiver in charge of the police department because they were so recalcitrant.
They lost control.
They lost complete control, and the commanders didn't want to implement it. Here, we are fortunate to have a mayor who is forward-thinking, Ras Baraka, who really wants to implement the consent decree. And we have a police director, you mentioned him, Anthony Ambrose, who wants to implement it.
Am I wrong about this? When the Trump administration came in, I heard Jeff Sessions and others, maybe we should look at these consent decrees.
They can look at it all they want.
But
the reality is it's now filed in federal court, overseen by a federal judge in the District of New Jersey.
They can't stop it. So the executive branch of government doesn't in any way supersede the judiciary.
Of course not. Separation of powers. And you've seen that with the immigration orders.
Okay. Body cams.
Yes.
Reforms. Let's be specific. Some of the recommendations for reforms include body cams.
Yes.
For patrol men and women. Why does that matter?
Body cams, body cameras.
And dash cams, by the way.
And car cameras. Right now, Newark PD is engaging in a pilot program with body cameras. And there are about 4 officers using them to get a feel for the body cameras and for the department to get a feel for the technology. They matter because they capture in real time the police interaction with the citizens on the street, real time. And that videotape is there. And notice a lot of the police prosecutions that we've seen and police investigations we've seen have been as a result of videotaped conduct.
But respectfully, Peter, we're doing the summer in the program in the summer of 2017. the Castile case.
Yes.
I don't want to pass judgment. Wasn't involved in the case, but I saw videotape. And
Facebook Live. Okay. Let me take you back.
How is that different than police cam?
All right.
I don't want to relitigate the case, but he's saying, I've got a weapon. It is a legal weapon. I'm not reaching for it. Cop says he's scared, shoots him. It's on video. He dies. The cop does not get convicted. It's not about being anti-cop or anything else, but you think you see what you see.
You do realize that police officer is no longer on the force. Now, it may come as cold comfort for some, but 10 years ago, you wouldn't have even had that result.
Would have been different?
Would have been different. You might not have had an indictment. I'll give you another example. To your point, North Charleston. Police officer gets into a skirmish over a traffic stop. Citizen runs away. Police officer turns, fires 8 rounds in the back. It's caught on an iPhone. That police officer is indicted, convicted. He pleads guilty. He's off the force. That's what videotape does. Also, take a look at Chicago. Laquan McDonald. You have a police officer indicted. 10 years ago, none of this would have happened. You would not have had criminal charges filed against the officers. Likely, you would not have even had those officers leaving the force.
Excuse me, Peter, cops in favor of these cams?
Once they start using them, yes. Because they protect the police officer from invalid claims of abuse of power.
Peter, sorry again for interrupting, but many police officers we spoke to, including the leadership, said, we feel we are under siege. We feel that we are the victims in many cases. So these body cams, these cams in the car, could be helpful, both sides?
You may recall that when I was Attorney General, I issued a directive to require in this state electronic recording of statements of people who were arrested for serious offenses. Now, the reason I did that, and I said the police officers have to do this, is to avoid situations in court where someone accused the officer of making up the statement, making up the confession, embellishing the confession. So the question is, how do we make sure that officers are treated fairly and also citizens are treated fairly? That camera will memorialize the relationship. You saw it with the New Jersey State Police. Once they put car cameras in the cars and you had stops caught on videotape, you saw the number of aggressive incidents reduced. You saw citizens feeling very comfortable about their interaction, and you had a tape that somebody could go back and review, both for training purposes as well as for enforcement
Minute and a half
purposes.
left. Peter, building trust between those in the community who have serious questions about certain police activities and the police, in fact, again, feeling they are targeted and they are unfair victims of all kinds of charges, and they have a virtually impossible job. Building trust. What gives you a reason to be hopeful?
I'm very hopeful.
Because?
I think that with the proper training and education, police officers will engage more regularly with citizens. I also believe that there are techniques available that help build trust, and you see it developing in other cities. First of all, you've got to be on the street a little bit more, out of the cars. You've got to be on bicycles a little more, out of the cars. You also have to have a precinct-by-precinct relationship. Notice I didn't say ward by ward.
Precinct by precinct.
Precinct by precinct. There are 5 precincts in the city. The precinct commanders in the city of Newark, the precinct commanders here have to have a relationship with the communities that those precincts patrol. And it requires a consistent engagement. Look, every relationship is hard, especially public safety relationships, because police officers see citizens at their worst. They come to domestic violence situations, children being abused situations, murders, stabbings, fights.
Incredibly difficult job.
So how do they do that, providing a high level of service, courteous service, respecting everyone's humanity, but also enforcing the law?
And in that spirit, in spite of everything, every incident we talked about, we thank all the men and women in blue who do an incredibly difficult job every day. And I can't imagine support and condone any of the acts that we just talked about. But we'll continue this discussion. And I want to thank Peter Harvey, the former Attorney General of the great state of New Jersey, independent monitor of the Newark Police Division. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Steve.
All good.
Thanks.
State of Affairs. We'll be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by PSE&G, Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Association of Health Underwriters, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters, and by Verizon. Promotional support provided by NJ Biz, All Business, All New Jersey, and by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth.